Hello there. We are going to talk about periods today. Hypothalamic amenorrhea, all your questions answered. I'm going to do my best to answer all your questions. There were many. Before we get started with this episode, I want you to know that I am not a licensed healthcare provider. I am not a doctor. So please, every decision that you make regarding your health, you have to talk to your doctor before, because I'm talking from my experience. I'm talking from what I've seen has worked for me, but I am not a medical healthcare professional. So make sure that you always keep that in mind, and you are responsible for every decision that you make for your health. Today's episode is purely only about hypothalamic amenorrhea. You probably know by now what that means. Maybe this is even how you found me, found my blog or found my YouTube, whatever you know me. So hypothalamic amenorrhea is a condition where you lose your period because you have been undereating and overtraining and stressing your body out in general. I had this condition for 10 years and I recovered from it fully, getting my periods. I just actually celebrating my 3 years of getting my period back. So yeah, I didn't have it for 10 years. Now I've had it back for 3 years. And I've been talking about it quite a bit. And I asked just recently from my audience what kind of questions they have about hypothalamic amenorrhea, recovery, life after recovering. And today I'm going to answer the questions that I got from my Instagram followers. The first thing I would like you to know is the burnout recovery spectrum. If you don't know about it yet, then here's basically how it goes. There are 3 phases in your burnout recovery spectrum. The first one is called the burnout itself. The second phase is called healing. And the third phase is called balance. And basically here's how it goes. Burnout is the phase where you train a lot, you work out a ton, you do either a lot of cardio or you do a lot of HIIT training, or you do both, or your rest days look like 15 miles of hilly walks. Whatever it is, you're not able to actually rest, you're going hard and fast all the time. So this is pretty common in the burnout phase. And in addition to that, we often also have caloric restriction, low macros, whatever it is, whatever the way is for us to lose weight. So that was the first phase. And this is the phase where we often develop hypothalamic amenorrhea because all the things we did were too extreme for our bodies to handle. So now the body is kind of turning down the functions that it cannot take care of anymore because it just does not have the energy anymore. Okay, so then the second phase is the healing phase. And this is where we start dealing with these issues. So you realize that, okay, things have gone pretty bad here. I have to do something about it. And this is where we start healing our bodies. And this is also where we start the hypothalamic amenorrhea recovery, okay? And then the third phase is the balance phase. This is where you have your period back for at least 3 months already. It's becoming more and more regular. The other symptoms of metabolic slowing are getting much better too. Your hair is no longer falling out. You have much more energy. You're pooping at least once a day. So these are all the signs and symptoms that your burnout is getting so much better, or actually you're already recovered and your body is actually restored. So these are the 3 phases. And now when we talk about hypothalamic amenorrhea, remember this happens in the first one, and then we start healing in the second phase. Today I'm going to answer your questions, just like I said, about hypothalamic amenorrhea, how it happens, why it happens, everything that people have asked me. So let's do it. And I'm going to go ahead and actually read the questions from my phone just as you asked them. The first question is, how important is life stress? I gained weight but have no period yet. The first thing I would tell you is that you probably have not been patient enough. Periods don't come back super fast. It depends, some people get their periods back in 4 weeks. For others, it can take 4 months. For me personally, it took 5 months. So just because it hasn't happened yet, it doesn't mean that it's never going to come back. The second thing to think about is that, have you done all the things that you have to do in order to get it back? And the things that you have to do, of course, I'm sure you know already, but it's worth saying it again. The things you have to do is to stop high intensity exercise and stop long distance cardio. I'm not talking about walking. Walking is cardio too, but I'm talking about long distance running, intense bike riding, doing like a lot of those rowing workouts. These are all long distance cardio. And also HIIT training, like I mentioned, very high intensity, Metcon type of things, CrossFit, everything that is too intense. So you have to stop that for a while. It doesn't mean that you have to stop exercise altogether, because walking is fine, yoga is fine, light resistance training might be fine. But if you're still doing intense stuff, you haven't cut back that, then this could be the reason why your period has not come back yet. Now your question, can it be that it's just life stress? I want to tell you that honestly, almost all my clients have hoped that this is the case. And almost all of them have asked, I've already gained so much weight. What if this is wrong? What if this doesn't work? It's actually not what's happening with me. I'm going to tell you that 100% of the time, this has been the problem for them. Weight has been the problem for them. They have still not gotten to that point where the period comes back. So it's not usually only the life stress. Life stress, of course, can throw off your hormones and can make you skip a couple of periods, but it's usually one like acute thing that happens in your life. For example, death of a loved one, or you have a really, really stressful period in school or at work, then yeah, your body might be really, really stressed out and you may skip a period or two. Also, traveling can be stress when you go overseas. There's different time zones that can also throw your body off a little bit and you may skip a period or two. But it does never lead to like years of amenorrhea where your period doesn't come back. So you can also just look back at your history and see, okay, I've been overtraining a lot, I've been under eating a lot, then these are the problems why your period is missing, and it's not the life stress. I know you don't want to believe it, but this is the case. I also have a YouTube video on this topic, and I'm going to link to that in description so you can find it. The topic is, I've done everything right, I've gained all the weight, why my period is not coming back. So I'm gonna make sure to put that there so you can find it. The next question is that, do I have to have sore breasts? I didn't have them before, so I don't have sore breasts now. Is that okay? This was a funny question. I think what the person who asked it meant that, is it true that you absolutely have to have breast soreness in order to have a normal period or ovulation? Something like that. That's I guess what she meant. And you know what? No, you don't have to have breast soreness to have a normal cycle. This is absolutely not the case. What is breast soreness caused by? It's usually caused by estrogen dominance. And that means that the balance between estrogen and progesterone is not quite there. It's not the way it should be. So that can be one of the reasons. But also not all months are the same. Some months you have sore breasts and the other months you don't have sore breasts. If you have them, it's usually after your ovulation. So it's the second half of your cycle from your ovulation to your period. So if you don't have sore breasts, but you still ovulate, that's amazing. That's great, because that means that you have a good hormonal balance. So don't worry if you don't get breast soreness. If you still ovulate, then I would say that you're super lucky. That's great. Sometimes the estrogen dominance that I mentioned can be caused by iodine deficiency, actually. I'm going to link to Nicole Jardim's article where she's talking about it, so make sure to check that out. The next question is, can you still do one HIIT workout a week and get your period back? All right, my question to you is that, why do you have to keep doing that one HIIT workout a week? What does that give you? And I have a feeling that you're still having a hard time of letting go of control and you still want to hold on to something, right? So you can still work out. It's important to understand why it's not a good idea to do high intensity exercise while you're working on getting your period back. So what high intensity exercise does is that elevates your cortisol levels. And we don't want to have those cortisol levels chronically elevated. This can actually be one of the problems why we miss the period, why we're having amenorrhea. So let go of that need to do that high intensity exercise and actually get to know your body, like get to know your intuition and see, what do I actually need? And this is very, very important to do in this healing phase, because we want to actually understand our bodies better. This is our opportunity to understand our bodies better, because when you ask yourself, okay, what do I actually want to do? Then if you're burnt out, if you're tired, then your body likely tells you that I don't want to do high intensity exercise. It's actually your ego who thinks that you have to do that high intensity exercise. So while I'm not saying that it's impossible to get your period back while you continue to do high intensity exercise, at the same time, I will also want you to ask yourself, why do I want to do that? Why am I willing to maybe put my recovery off so I can still continue to do that one workout a week? The next question is, can recovery also improve thyroid levels? I want you to know that I am not a doctor and I cannot diagnose anyone. Make sure that you always talk to a doctor about these things. But here's what I have seen. Recovering can improve your thyroid levels too. It's important to know that very many women with hypothalamic amenorrhea or an eating disorder, undereating, have problems with their thyroids. And sometimes it actually doesn't show up in tests. So what many doctors test is the thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH, and that comes back normal. However, there can be a problem on the deeper level, and this is the conversion problem. So there are two important thyroid hormones. One is called the T4 and the other one is called the T3. The body can only use the T3. There may be a conversion problem. You're not able to convert from T4 to T3. That's why it's important to check that too, and not only get that TSH checked. And this conversion problem can definitely be caused by too much stress. It can be caused by undereating, which is what most of us who've had hypothalamic amenorrhea do. We have this undereating problem. It can also be caused by poor gut health, by the way, and it can also be caused by problems with your liver. So these are definitely options, but when I talk to women, they often do have undereating problem. This is why we have hypothalamic amenorrhea, and that's gonna mess up our thyroid also a little bit. So it's definitely a possibility that your thyroid will come back to normal when you start working towards your HA recovery. Here is how you know that you may have problems with your thyroid. You are really, really fatigued. You are moody, you're irritable, maybe you even get depressed. You definitely have body temperature regulation problems. You're often feeling really, really cold. Hair loss is one of them. And now when you think about it, these are all really, really common symptoms in hypothalamic amenorrhea too. So yes, absolutely, there is a connection between your thyroid and hypothalamic amenorrhea. The next question is, in recovery, what is the maximum heart rate? When I'm walking, I reach 120 beats per minute. Is it okay? Like I said earlier, the healing phase is a really good time to get in touch with yourself and understand what your body needs. That's why I'm recommending everybody to put away those trackers, those fitness trackers that track your heart rate and then your steps and your miles and your calories for sure. So why are you still tracking your numbers? This is my first question. And is it still that you want to stay in control, that you want to control, that you still are in this fat burning mode? I'm using air quotes here. Maybe that's what you're thinking. I don't know. But I would say that if you want to move, go for a walk and enjoy the walk. When you're walking slowly, this is where your cortisol level actually lower. And this is what we want. So we don't want to constantly stare at the watch on your wrist and see what is it showing. Am I going 120 beats per minute? What is it showing? So this is what we don't want. We want to be intuitive. We want to learn about our body and trust our body. And this is how we should actually exercise in this healing phase. Later, when you get to the balance phase, you can maybe start doing more intense stuff again. You can bring your trackers back if you want to, and then see, okay, my target is to stay in this range, but while you are healing, I really recommend that you put away your trackers. And speaking of your heart rate, there's one more important thing to know. A lot of times we think that having a really low heart rate is a sign of really, really great fitness and conditioning level. However, it's not always the case, especially if you have been severely undereating, malnourished, then your heart just gets weaker, and that's why it's beating slower. So make sure that you know that too, that you don't think that if your heart rate, resting heart rate is around 30 or something, that you're in a really, really good physical shape. And this is a great thing, because a lot of times this is actually the opposite. Of course, if you are a really trained athlete who eats properly and has a lot of muscle mass, then in their case, yes, this can really be true. But if you're somebody who's been starving yourself and doing a lot of exercise and overtrained yourself, then this is probably not you. The next question is that my problem is overtraining. If I am currently overweight, do I have to eat a lot to recover? Okay, so overweight, what does that even mean? If you look at the BMI, then overweight starts from 25. However, this is often not overweight for everybody. For example, I personally, my BMI is somewhere between 24.5 and 25. So getting really close to that overweight category. However, I do finally have my period and I'm feeling much more energized than I compared to when I was like to 22 on the BMI scale. So this is not really a good number to look at. But if you're saying that your problem is overtraining and you're asking if you should still eat more, then I would say that first thing, let go of that overtraining and go to that healing phase. And in this healing phase, you're going to do slow walking and yoga and stretching and maybe very light resistance training, but you don't push yourself to do a lot of intense exercise or long cardio. So for many people, it can be enough to let go of that training and see what happens. And I've noticed that some people are more sensitive to training too much and other people are more sensitive to under eating. For example, I know that when I work out too much, my cycle gets a little bit irregular, it comes a little bit later. So I'm definitely more sensitive to that, and maybe that's you too. All right, the next question is there anything to help reverse osteoporosis after getting it from having hypothalamic amenorrhea? The best thing you can do is to get your cycle back. It's important to also know that your cycle has to be ovulatory, because it is possible to just have a period but not have an ovulation. This is not what we want. We want the full deal. When we're able to ovulate, that indicates that we do have enough estrogen in our bodies, and estrogen is very, very important. Estrogen is necessary for us to build bone. So the number one thing is to have ovulatory cycles every month. And the number two thing, this is from the book No Period, Now What? They say that there's one type of exercise that can really help you to build bone. And this is high impact training where you switch directions fast. For example, basketball or hockey or soccer, things like that can be also very beneficial. The next question is, what are the typical symptoms of low estrogen? And of course, the first one is not having your periods or irregular periods. It can also be hot flashes, it can be mood swings, it can be irritability, headaches, painful sex. There are a lot of things, but of course, all these things that I just mentioned, they can be caused by hormonal imbalance. It doesn't always necessarily have to be low estrogen. Next question, what do you think about Vitex and maca powder to get your period back? Are they necessary? When it comes to Vitex, it's important to know that you have to work with a professional who can prescribe you that and make sure that it works for you, because this is a pretty powerful supplement. I'm going to link to an article by Dr. Lara Bryden who explains why it's important to know whether it actually is or isn't for you, and just don't take it just like that. I personally took it when I was recovering from hypothalamic amenorrhea because the naturopath that I worked with at the time prescribed it to me, so I took it, but I wouldn't tell that everybody has to take it. There are a couple of things that you have to know about it. For example, if you just stopped your birth control pill, you shouldn't start taking Vitex quickly, or if you're younger than 18 years old, you shouldn't take Vitex. But these are all the things that I have learned from this article, from Lara Bryden's article, so I'm going to link to that. It's going to be in the description, so you can look it up and read. The other thing is maca powder, and no, maca is not some kind of magical food that's gonna give you your period back. When it comes to getting your period back, it comes down to taking down the workout intensity, eating more, resting more, giving your body the proper nourishment and rest, and this is the thing that will bring your period back. I do have a video on this topic if there are any superfoods for hypothalamic amenorrhea recovery, and you probably know the answer already, but I'm going to link to it anyway if you want to check it out. The next question is elimination diets and hypothalamic amenorrhea. What are your thoughts? I don't think that you should be doing an elimination diet. This is my opinion. I'm not a doctor, so make sure you check with your doctor. However, no, like what we have to do is to put more foods back into our diet, not take more out. Of course, if you have intolerances, if you have allergies, if there's something that doesn't work for your gut, yes, it's probably better to leave it out, but don't make that decision just based on the fact that something made your stomach a little bit uncomfortable. Because to be honest, if you've been under eating for a long time and now you start adding some foods to your diet again, your body doesn't have the resources to deal with them yet. You don't have the gut bacteria because you haven't had this food in forever. So this is why you may get some stomach discomfort. But again, if you suspect that you have some kind of intolerance, some kind of allergy, it's better to get that checked. Overall, I do not think that elimination diets are a good idea because we have to diversify what we eat, and we also have to get rid of this mental block that some foods are bad and we shouldn't be having them. In HA recovery, it's important that you have a lot of foods all the time, as much as you want, and this is what's going to heal you. Next question is, how come there's women who eat more but still exercise intensely and get their periods back? The first thing I would say that you don't know everything about these women's lives. Some people, they exercise a lot, but all the other things are on point. They sleep well and they eat a lot, and that's why their bodies are really resilient and strong. They can handle it. Then other people are really, really stressed out. They exercise a ton, they undereat, they don't sleep, they have really, really stressful work life or home life, whatever it is. And of course, they are more likely to have hormonal imbalances such as hypothalamic amenorrhea. The second thing is that we are all different and our stress level tolerance is also different. We can do the same work. I can do same workouts and eat the same way as somebody else, and this somebody else is fine and cool and ready to crush it, and I lose my period, I lose my sleep. So we are all built a little bit differently, and what we can do is just honor it, not compare. The next question is, how did you get back to exercise and eating more intuitively after hypothalamic amenorrhea? How long did it take you? Okay, well, when I started exercising again after HA recovery, I did it wrong. I wanted to get back to intense training, just like I had done before. And when I tried it, I was really, really exhausted. I got burnt out. I had to take like 2 weeks off because my body was really, really tired. Same thing happened when I tried running a little bit, and I would run and then my cycle would go to like 47, 48 days. So it's definitely a longer cycle. So I did make some mistakes when it comes to exercise after I had recovered. This is where I realized that, okay, I can't do this anymore. High intensity training is not for me right now. It's too early. Long cardio is not for me right now. It's too early. And this is where I went back to basics. I started doing simple strength training just with body weight 2-3 days a week. And I remember at first I was like, is this even going to work? Is it even going to make me any stronger? But it did. I really got so much stronger because I took appropriate rest days between the workout days. I didn't push myself so hard that my body was aching and hurting the day after. I took it really reasonably. And this is how I also created my strength training program, which is called Simple Strength for Women. And it is designed for women just like you. If you are just recently recovered from hypothalamic amenorrhea, want to get back to training, but don't want to mess your body up again. This program really works amazingly. Honestly, I haven't had anyone who has ever purchased this program tell me that they've had issues with their periods or that their symptoms came back. This has never happened. So that's why I really know that this program works. So if you are in this situation, post HA, want to start training again, I really highly recommend that you check it out. And I'm going to put that in the description as well. And when it comes to eating, how did I start eating more intuitively? I gotta say that I ate really intuitively already when I was recovering from HA. And in the very many years ago, I had a lot of problems with eating, but let's just say that even when I started my recovery, which was at the end of 2016, my relationship with food was already much better. And I was probably eating, I didn't track, but I was probably eating around 2,300 calories daily anyway. So I was doing pretty well. Of course, I upped my food intake when I was in recovery, but I didn't track anything. And so it went just kind of naturally that I was pretty intuitive the entire time. The next question is, why is that although HA is very common, especially in female athletes, there's little science on it? There's actually not that little science. There is science and there are research articles out there. It's for some reason that our doctors don't seem to know about it. And again, if you're an amazing doctor who told you exactly what to do right away, that's great. But I've heard from a lot of people that their doctors didn't tell them that, or their doctors told them to go on a hormone replacement therapy, or their doctors told them to take the birth control pill. I don't know what happened and why they are misinformed. I don't have an answer to that question, but if you look at the research articles, there is stuff out there that's talking about female athletes and hypothalamic amenorrhea. The next question is, what to do if your BMI is close to being out of the quote-unquote normal range, which is 25 plus, but you have hypothalamic amenorrhea. Like I said before, BMI is not a good number to look at. While it is true that more women than not have very low BMIs or medium range BMIs, this is not true for everybody. And like I said myself too, when I started my recovery, my BMI was 22.1. So right in the middle of that middle range, and I still didn't have my period. So it's not always a great indicator. And of course, you may have PCOS, which is a little bit more women who are on the higher side of the BMI, on the BMI scale, may have PCOS, but this also has to be checked and has to be checked correctly. Your doctor has to check your hormones and not only look at your ovaries and say, hey, you have polycystic ovaries. Your hormones have to be checked as well to confirm that you actually do have PCOS. And it's important because the PCOS and HA recovery protocols are completely different. So you really want to make sure that you get the right diagnosis. And like I said before, if your BMI is 25 or more, but you know your past, that you have been restricting your food a lot and you've been overtraining a lot and really stressed out, then there's still a good chance that you have hypothalamic amenorrhea. So it's very critical that if you are on this higher side on the BMI and you're not sure what exactly it's caused by, that you do get your hormones tested and not rely only on the fact that you have polycystic ovaries, because many women have polycystic ovaries, but they don't have any other symptoms or period or menstrual irregularities. The next question is, if cycles are long after HA, is that normal? Are they supposed to get shorter with time? Usually they do get shorter with time. And I once did an interview with Nicole Jardim, whom I always go to if I had period questions. I always look up her stuff, so I recommend you do the same. One time I interviewed her and she said that for every year that you missed your period because of HA, give yourself at least 1 month for your period to become regular. So let's say that if you didn't have your period for 6 years, then you should give yourself at least 6 months, right, before your period gets regular. However, there are some women who are naturally a little bit more irregular. I'm actually one of them. My periods are not like clockwork all the time. So it's important that you don't freak out, that you do your best that you can, that you rest enough and sleep enough and keep your workouts moderate, and that you continue eating and do everything that you can to keep your periods normal. But yes, to answer your question, it's absolutely true that your cycle lengths get a little bit shorter. I see it a lot that at first the cycles are maybe like even 50 days apart, and then they go to like around 40, and then they go to 30. You know, it's not the same for everybody, but usually it is true that your cycles do get a little bit shorter. The next question is balancing blood sugar important in HA recovery or after you get your period to regulate it? Is balancing blood sugar important? I would say that if you don't have any problems, then I don't think that you have to make a special effort to balance your blood sugar. You know when your blood sugar is not great, you probably feel really hungry sometimes, or you get like dizziness, or you have some symptoms. Like I personally had really painful periods. So something that makes you think, okay, you know, maybe things are not fine, and this is a good time to check your blood sugar and see what that looks like. I found that my blood sugar was quite jumping. Some foods like really shoot it up high and then it would drop. So I found that some foods don't work for me, and really super high carbohydrate foods or really high sugar foods, I had to eliminate them for a little bit. Because when I did eliminate them, then my period pains went away. But I would say that if you don't have any problems, just don't overthink it, you know? You can have your cupcake, you can have your piece of cake, you can have your chocolate. Don't worry about it too much. If you have some symptoms, then get curious and see what might be going on. The next question is tips on exercise after HA recovery. Is it possible to exercise more intensely while eating enough? When you first start your exercise again after HA recovery, then please do it really gradually. Do it slowly. Just like I talk about in the Simple Strength for Women program, start with 2 strength workouts a week and see how your body responds. Then add one more workout and see how your body responds, and go like that for a couple of months, right? Before you start adding any intense stuff into the mix or any long cardio. If your body responds well, if you still are getting your periods, if you don't have any symptoms coming back, then sure, you can try adding more intense exercise and see how your body responds. And if everything is fine, then of course you can add that exercise, but always monitor yourself, make sure that you're doing everything right, make sure that you're eating, and please go for it. But this is not until you are fully recovered. Once you are in this balance phase that I talk about when I'm talking about the burnout recovery spectrum. Remember, there's the burnout, then there was the healing, then there's the balance. So in the balance phase, you have to be in the balance phase. You have to restore your periods and restore your normal metabolism before you can start adding into that intense exercise again. Next question, is it possible to recover from HA without having to stuff yourself all the time? This is a tricky one because we want the recovery to feel normal, but at the same time, there's going to be a little bit of pushing sometimes. Yes, sometimes it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable because you're already full and you're thinking, oh my goodness, I have to put more food into my body. Well, when you think about it, what is this caused by? It may be caused by you under eating for years, right? And as a result of that, you're just not used to eating more food. So as a result, you may feel really, really full even after eating 1,200 calories or 1,400 calories. And you're thinking, oh my goodness, how can I put even more food into my body? It doesn't feel good. Well, if this is the situation, then there's just one way to do it, and it is to actually do it. Just do it, right? You can, of course, add higher calorie foods that are easy to eat. For example, nuts and nut butters and chips and everything that has a lot of calories, and that way you don't feel super stuffed. Of course, if you eat like huge salads and then very filling fiber and water rich vegetables, then it's gonna feel like stuffing. But if you eat like nuts and other like high calorie foods, like I said, chips and some chocolate, then it should be relatively easy to get to your calorie target, which should be, as you probably know, according to No Period Now, 2,500 or even more than that. So sometimes it does feel a little bit like, oh, I have to stuff myself, I have to eat even more. Why is that? But you have to understand that this is for the healing purposes, and you can also make it feel a little bit better. You can, like I said, eat things that don't take up so much volume in your body, but give you enough calories. But at the same time, it shouldn't feel like full-time job either, like so uncomfortable that you're always pushing and telling yourself to eat more. Try to find a good balance where you're getting in enough calories but not feel stuffed. All right, we have 3 more questions. Any supplements you recommend for HA? Magnesium is a great supplement for everybody who has any period issues. That also includes a hypothalamic amenorrhea or not having a period, because magnesium is one of the minerals that gets depleted the fastest when we have a lot of stress in our lives, and who wouldn't have that? The other one, if you have a hard time just calming down, you're really anxious, nervous, you can try adaptogens. Ashwagandha is one of them. And then vitamin D is going to be also really helpful. But none of those things are that one thing that will bring your period back. What you have to do is to eat more and exercise less and recover and rest. There's another supplement that's called ALC. I never tried it personally, I never took it, but Dr. Nicola Rinaldi has talked about it a lot on her website, and she says that this seems to be a reasonable supplement for those who are wanting to get their periods back. So I'm going to read what she has to say about it. She says, ALC appears to lead to increases and decreases in hormones as are expected and necessary for recovery of periods missing to hypothalamic amenorrhea. I think that this is a very reasonable supplement to take as you work toward recovery, assuming you are not taking any medication that interact. Please check with your doctor and pharmacist. And last 2 questions today. First, what do you do if you got your period back after HA but lost it again? Do you have to go all in again, not exercise, eat 2,500 calories and more? So it's really important that you monitor your symptoms all the time. When you start exercising and you start noticing some signs coming back, some symptoms coming back, maybe you have poor sleep, you know your own symptoms. Everybody has different. Maybe you have poor sleep, maybe your cycles are getting super long, or you're skipping ovulation, you don't ovulate, you only get a period, and then your period goes away too. These are all the signs that, yeah, something's happening in the body. So don't let that go too bad. Don't go back to that burnout phase because you were already balanced, right? Don't let things go on for months and months before you start doing anything about it. So as soon as you get that first sign, you're going to go back and see, okay, what did I do differently last month? What may have caused it? And then you can go ahead and fix that. Let's say that you, again, started doing five intense workouts a week, and then your periods went away. What do? Well, it doesn't mean that you are back in your burnout phase. It just means that you're going to cut back from 5 to 2 and see what that does, if that brings your period back. And this is how you find your true balance. And you don't push yourself all the time, and don't mess with it all the time. See how much can I handle, how much can I tolerate. Try to keep that balanced approach, and understand that yes, if you have already been really, really burnt out, there's a higher chance that it will come back if you don't keep your symptoms in check. So please take care of yourself. And the last question is recovery with low carb possible if they are irritating, as long as I eat enough calories and rest enough? I don't know why the carbs are irritating, but one reason might be that you have been on a very low carb diet for a long time and your body is just not used to it. But overall, carbohydrates are really, really, really so super important for women and to ovulate and to have our periods. Low carb diets can increase your cortisol, they can slow down your thyroid, they can cause insomnia, they can cause hypothalamic amenorrhea, they can cause constipation. So carbs are really important because they give your body the energy that it needs to keep all these functions working properly. So I don't know what the reason is why they are so irritating to you, but remember that maybe you have been on a very low carb diet, so you want to actually start gradually bringing them back because they are really necessary for us. And a lot of times, we can look at somebody else and be like, oh, but she doesn't have that problem. She's eating low carb. She's doing fine. But you know what? We're not all built the same. And a lot of times those who do promote those really low carb diets are men, and men and women, our bodies work really differently. In general, it is really important that you do get adequate amount of carbohydrates to get your periods back. And it's not even a bad idea to eat those quick carbs that are often labeled as bad carbs, and I'm using air quotes here. Sometimes if you've been really, really under eating, these are the ones that are really fast and really, really easy to digest for your body. So go ahead and have some of those and see what happens. All right, this is it today. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any other questions, please reach out to me. Thanks again for being here, and I will talk to you next time.